12 teams tipped off their WNBA seasons back in May. We have now gone from 12 down to the final 8, folks. And on that note, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome in to the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball universe. Back with you folks tonight, beginning the 2016 WNBA playoff coverage here on the WNBA 365 Network's Playoff Central. Good evening, folks, and to break down the playoffs for tonight, at least, joined the night of the hangout by Marquez Anderson, a contributor from the Project Spurs Network, joining us from Louisiana State University, otherwise known as LSU, and of course the SoCal crew, Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart up in Los Angeles. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego. Shorty, Marquez, KT, playoffs have come and arrived. Time for us to break down the everything in regards to the postseason and party. Other than that, guys, how's it going tonight? And like normal, good to see you.
It's hot, but I'm surviving.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah, it's a little warm, but ready to talk playoff basketball.
With that, folks, we will get into both a program alert, a retirement, then get to our playoff coverage. But, of course, folks, Facebook, Twitter, live chat box as normal, open for you folks. So hit us up over on Facebook if you are going to do so at facebook.com/WNBA365, or hit us up over on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calimac3, at ShortyMamba24, at O Marquez, or at Pup1010 with the hashtags of WNBA365 and or the new hashtag of Gear Up. We'll get to that momentarily, or if you are joining us live tonight, folks, hit up the live chat box. We'll get to your questions, comments, or concerns about the program when we get a break in the action. Of course, guys, network alert for you folks, official tonight. As you folks may have saw by the new identity on the social media branding for the network this evening, but we will, though, of course, be having a changing of the guard come October 10th this year, when, of course, I slide out of the main hosting role for about a good 6 weeks, of course, as you folks may be aware of. But right now I'm in the process of getting my house renovated down here in San Diego, so I'll be out of my house for at least a good 4 to 6 weeks while they do fix the place up. And, again, we have a lot of, hopefully, some new and improved features, including, hopefully, the internet in here won't go out every other day and turn around, and then we'll have some other things here as well. So, again, that, in regards to that, folks, meaning that I'm not going to be fully leaving the network during that time. I'm going to be helping out, though, still with either setting up the streams, coming on and helping out as a guest analyst or a co-host, you can sort of say. But also I'll still be taking care of all the stuff on social media and stuff. But, again, you'll be seeing Marquez, Shorty, Crystal, Reagan, and Erica holding on the fort in the main host chair while I am, of course, away and getting my house fixed. So, Shorty, again, this is sort of a way, though, as I kind of have dubbed this as, gearing up for the future as a tagline, because, of course, I'm allowing you guys more time and more leeway, of course, something that I wrote about, Shorty, that this would not have been possible without the rebrand and everyone involved with the network. Of course, your hard work, dedication, and giving up your time to be a part of this network every night. And again, this was something that would not have been we would not have been able to do 2 years ago when we were still going through that very rough stretch of time that we are in. So, Shorty, I guess now that you guys get some free time, I guess, to kind of control the network like I would most nights, I guess, how does that, I guess, kind of make you feel in regards to, again, being, more leverage, more leeway for you guys, of course, coming on the network every night as well. And again, you guys get to, again, share the host chair for a good 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think, it's a really good initiative because, it has happened before on nights when you have froze during the broadcast stream and, other events, that happen. And, us as, network co-hosts being able to step in and take charge is, a really good thing for the network overall. However, I will say personally on my part, I'm not sure how much free time I will have personally with the new changes surrounding my, area. I just got hired for a new job, if anyone cares. So I'll have to be, dealing with that per se. But I'll definitely continue to be a part of the network in any way, in any capacity that I can.
And again, Marquez, this all, is going to vary pretty much once the season does end, again, about how much free time we're all going to have, of course, by the time I move out of my house to go to my extended stay down here in San Diego for that 6 weeks. I start hockey season. I have indoor soccer starting up later on in October. So I know there's going to be a lot of moving puzzle pieces. But again, Marquez, like I said, though, in my story when I wrote and confirmed again about this, happening down here at my place again, is this would not have been possible if we had our old identity, our old branding, and our old co-hosting team or our old broadcasting, because we would be off air for those whole 6 weeks. Because again, there was no faith, no trust, of course, from myself going to our former broadcast team at this point. But I guess, Marquez, again, you guys again get a chance to really again carry the load, and again, sort of like I wrote those, well, take us to that next level again. I know we kind of have talked about next level, of course, when we rebranded in October and then adding everyone into the equation. So Marquez, I guess, what are your thoughts about again, sort of you guys getting a chance to kind of be free birds for a few weeks on the network?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be cool. Like Shorty said, it's happened before, and I think we've done a pretty good job in terms of stepping in and filling your void. It's not going to be the same, but I mean,
Yes.
I think we can do it.
I don't know if it's not going to be the same. But Crystal, so again, I know that we've already have had some instances already in regards to again some problems again that I'm trying to get corrected during this studio revamp right now. Of course, we've had internet problems here sometimes, and we've had broadcast cut short prematurely because of my internet going out. But again, there's going to be some new things in the background, perhaps when that happens. Perhaps some green screen, maybe some little score trackers, maybe in the back. So we're trying to work that out. But again, Crystal, and I'll say it for the third time, but again, this would not have been possible again 2 years ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, when we were still under our former branding and identity with our old broadcasting, so unreliable. And so a lot of problems, of course, would come up, though, in regards to maybe a minute before the show, and we'd have to go on. We couldn't go on air because of that. But again, Crystal, again, that there is people like you guys that are in this hangout, and then, of course, Rap and Eric, of course, that are going to be able to step in and fill the void again. I'm not fully leaving again, like I've already said, but again, Crystal, what are your thoughts? Again, you guys get 6 weeks of 6 weeks of fun here again to hold down fort while the main guy is gone. So what do you think?
Like Marquez said, it's probably not going to be exactly the same. Sorry if you guys can hear a cartoon in the back. My niece was in here, but it's like Marquez says, it might not be the same. We'll try our best. It's probably going to be fun. It's probably going to be a lot of errors. I'm not going to lie, especially the day that I probably host the show. There's probably going to be so many mess ups that day. I'm just letting you guys know in advance, so bear with me. But I think it should be kind of fun.
So again, folks, gearing up for the future. Of course, October 10th launches the sort of the secondary, second coming of the network. But again, folks, you'll be seeing more and more of Eric and Crystal and Shorty, Marquez and Crystal, and perhaps Reagan too. Again, they'll be sliding into my spot on any given night, pretty much. Again, I'm not fully saying goodbye. Again, I'm just saying goodbye for a few weeks. Again, got some work to be done at the house down here, so. Again, I'll be gone for about 4 to 6 weeks, but again, I'm not fully leaving. Of course, I'll be still in charge of social media interactions with the network Twitter handle and Facebook page, and I'll still be scheduling the live streams for the gang here, and I'll still be making some appearances though when I have time, of course, to slide in here and join the co-host panel. But again, it's coming up, folks, October 10th, coming up in about roughly 3 weeks or so, probably, when we will officially go on to that. And again, folks, the new hashtag again is #GearUp. So if you're going to be interacting with the team during that time, again, that is the kind of unofficial new hashtag, and the new brand, of course, is gearing up for the future. With that, guys, let's get to the more important discussion. First off, guys, big news, though, in the WNBA today in regards to another retirement, guys. But today, longtime WNBA great, 17-year vet, and the record holder with 499 career games played, two-time WNBA champion Delisha Milton-Jones officially and finally announced her retirement today from the game. She loves basketball. She is going to be heading off to a new career as an assistant coach over at Pepperdine University. Shorty, there is no denying that Delisha Milton-Jones is by far one of the main cornerstones, main catalyst, and main faces of both the WNBA and the Los Angeles Sparks organization. Of course, we know her very well and love her dearly, of course, for not only her time spent in LA, but also during the LA Sparks offseason woes of 2014, how she was one of the players, along with Candace Parker, to retweet the petition link, of course, that we had sent out during that offseason run. But Shorty, I mean, 17 years, the longest tenured player in the league. Again, 499 games played. That's a WNBA record. A record that's probably not going to be broken by anybody in quite some time, probably. And again, does have a job opening too. Again, with the Pepperdine Waves of the West Coast Conference of NCAA basketball. But Shorty, I looked over DMJ's letter today, and she pretty much, Shorty, wholeheartedly, thanked the game, but also thanked everybody in the WNBA from the top man down to trainers and ticket sale reps at every arena she played in. Shorty, what is your overall final thoughts on Delisha Milton-Jones' illustrious career in the WNBA and why?
Yes, you talked about, her being in the league for 17 years. I mean, that's a big accomplishment because normally you don't see players, stay in the league that long. They leave, much shorter. I like Candace Wiggins, who was only in the league, if I'm not recall, for 7 years. So add 10 plus years to that, and that is insane. But, it shows the toughness of DMJ, aka D Nasty, one of the toughest defenders in the league, And also another stat is that, she led the league in personal fouls. That's how, just tenacious her defense was. And even in the letter, she talked about, all the trouble that she gave to her opponents and the refs and things like that. But at the end, she means, all love, no love lost. So, I mean, that was definitely, very compassionate coming from her. But again, we talked about, playing a total of 499 games, top ranked in the league. No one, is going to break that record. And I know a lot of Sparks fans were complaining and hoping that a team would pick her up to let her reach 500, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. So good luck to DMJ at Pepperdine, and she will always be remembered as definitely one of the toughest defenders in the league.
Marquez, you think about certain records in pro sports, and whenever I think of games played, I always think about Cal Ripken Jr. again, who played in over 2,100 plus consecutive baseball games in his career. That's at least 10, 15 plus years of playing through illness, injuries, what have you. And for DMJ to play 499 games of her career over 17 years, like I said, it's not going to be beaten anytime soon again. I know that there's a record that I think that I'm chasing, but will never break, guys. I think this goes for any broadcaster out there. Is 3,339 straight games called. Of course, that was set by the late great Chick Hearn, the Lakers' longtime announcer, who went on a mammoth run from the the 60s up until 2001 when the Lakers got to the finals one year. Those are records, Marquez, that. There's an old saying, of course, records are made to be broken. Certain records aren't meant to be broken. And Marquez, what she's meant though to the whole league again, 17 years playing in every season but the last three basically, again, 17 seasons after coming into the league, and sort of being here since the early foundation era of the league to, of course, the back-to-back titles she won in Los Angeles. Marquez, there's a lot to digest. But what is your final thoughts, and how will you remember DMJ and her career across those 17 years in the W?
Oh, yeah. As Shorty said, she'll definitely be remembered for her toughness and just that intensity that she brought every time out. She was known for throwing an elbow or two, getting nasty. But aside from that, I just think she's going to be missed as a whole in terms of her playing style and just her integrity and character, period. I think a lot of people were kind of hoping that she would get to 500. But of course, that didn't happen. And as cool as it would have been to see, I don't think anyone's going to really be able to surpass her record, though.
Again, Chris, if you put it in perspective again, you're considering 34 games a season, plus whatever playoff games you play. That may take about 15 to 17 years for someone to break in regards to, again, of how many games DMJ racked up on her body. Of course, writing about to the point where she's got rods in her on her shins or in her shins, and she's got replaced ACL and MCL and Achilles tendons again. That just shows you, though, the dedication, the love for the game of basketball. Again, when you pretty much gave up, blood, sweat, tears, and body parts for the game you love best. Of course, KT, of course, DMJ behind a lot of things. Of course, the back-to-back titles, notably for the Sparks in 01 and 02, the last time an LA team hoisted the trophy at Staples Center. Crystal, in your mind, how do you remember DMJ for her career across those 17 years in the W?
Pretty much like you said, just a very dominant defender. One of the main reasons LA had a championship run in 01 and 2000. You remember her for the 08 Olympics. You remember her for that 2008 year. I mean, you just refer it all. I mean, they don't call her D Nasty for no reason.
And with that, guys, some words from the chat box from one of our good viewers, Christy Wilson, who said her and Lisa Leslie were the equivalent and the true meaning of a dynamic duo. And our good man in the box, Todd Mintz, says Delisha had a tremendous amount of fans, always very personable with all, also dependable and consistent as a player, always gave you defense, focus, and great effort every night. But again, folks, officially after a very, very long, dragged-out situation, but finally, folks, coming to peace with her decision, Delisha Milton-Jones, after 17 years and 499 WNBA games played, she has decided to finally formally announce her retirement. And again, we'll be assisting with the Pepperdine Waves of the West Coast Conference in women's hoops coming up this season, coming up in a couple of months. Shorty, want to go to you real quick because Tom Mintz is going to wants to add a few things to the discussion that on an article. But first and foremost, Crystal, like normal, please say hi to your boy Eric Nemchok, joining us from Elmhurst, Illinois.
Bye, Eric.
Sorry, Eric, she said bye to you, man. But hey, well, I'll say hi to you at least, just because, for the sake of it. Shorty, I know that you had written a pretty good article again, sort of, I guess, kind of, somewhat closing the case, I guess, about who would win the WNBA MVP award again between two really, really worthy competitors, of course, between both Tina Charles of the New York Liberty and Nneka Ogwumike of the LA Sparks. Todd Mintz wanted to write in real quick and just saying in regards to this, in regards to your article, Shorty, he says, after this last week in reading Shorty's article, he is sold that Nneka should win and be the MVP. Charles had some major games while Nneka showed to be human with three or so subpar games, but likely do not beat SA without her. She came up strong the last two games. Tina's performance in his mind died somewhat, coinciding with the Liberty's terrible play of the last few days of the season. Nneka should win the award. The numbers are about dead even with her, with Charles and Nneka averaging 2 less minutes a game than Charles, between 33 to 31. So, I mean, Shorty, Todd in a nutshell basically just put it in a nutshell and saying that, Nneka has an edge, I think, in certain categories again. And I still, though, am torn on this. We'll get to this momentarily, but I guess, Shorty, give us your thoughts, though, on both the article posted and any response you may have about Todd and his thoughts, I guess, about who should win MVP in your mind.
Yeah, so my thoughts for writing the article, and again, it's a 2-part article. Basically, it's, it's basically me giving the statistical data on, both Charles and Ogwumike making their case for MVP. And then just today, I posted the second article giving you the stat update, the full updates. In the first article, there were stats that I posted based on the first half. And then the second one, is given basically the full totals of both players. But yeah, it's just overall, I mean, I do think that Nneka should be MVP, even though in the article I definitely wanted to keep it unbiased and just give my thoughts on, and looking through the eyes of the voting committee on, what they would be looking for when voting for this award. Now, of course, for the pros for Tina, is that she has led the league, in scoring and rebounding. And, she's doing it with, not much help, or you could say not much of having the caliber of teammates as Nneka, having Candace Parker and Christy Tolliver, who was most improved, J-Lab, who is a potential 6th woman of the year this season. So that is the argument in favor of Charles, is that she's doing a lot with a lot less help. But I do, agree with Todd when saying that when it came into the second half, the Libs did, go on a slide, where they just didn't look in sync. And of course, some of that is due to injuries of her teammates. But other than that, they just weren't as dominant as they were in the first half. So that may possibly cost her some votes. And then on the flip side for Ogwumike, she has had, one of the best seasons, I would say, in WNBA history when it comes to field goal percentage. At one point, shooting 70%. But of course, LA themselves went on a terrible slide, winning 5 out of 5 games in the second half, and she was just, merely shooting overall 66.5%, which is still very high. But of course, sadly, she missed the mark to break Tamika Raymond's record. And even though, NECA, brought the stats this season, of course, one of the things that will play against her is having Candace Parker. And the thing is, how many votes will she share with Candace Parker, who didn't have, the best season career-wise, but was still, very dominant. She finished third in assists, this year. She also has the highest usage rate of the team. So that's the things that, the committee will have to consider, when deciding who will win MVP.
So again, folks, to catch Shorty's article or any article posted on the site, again, visit us over at WNBA365.wix.com/WNBA365. Once you get to the main page, click on the network website button, and you'll be able to gain access into the site where you can check out the articles posted, of course, by Shorty and by anyone that may write something on the network page anytime soon. Okay, guys, once more, again, 12 teams began our season back in May. We have gone from 12 to the final 8 teams of the 2016 WNBA postseason. Now, again, folks, to reiterate again, a brand new schedule format this year led to a brand new WNBA playoff format again. So I'll try to go over this in detail as good as I can. So again, folks, the top 8 teams, regardless of conference scores, qualified for our postseason picture and postseason party this year, folks, between the Lynx, Sparks, Liberty, and Sky 1 through 4, followed by the Fever, Dream, Storm, and Mercury 5 through 8, I should say. So, hey, folks, to rekindle this once more, again, this is going to have a lot of moving puzzle pieces and parts. But again, folks, the first round that begins on Wednesday, again, will feature 2 NCAA tournament-style single elimination games between both the 8 and 5 seeds and 7 and 6 seeds, with the 5 and 6 seeds hosting these games on Wednesday. Round 2 will follow the same format. But as a reminder, though, the teams will be reseeded following each round that is completed for the postseason. In regards to round 2, of course, the Liberty and Sky have that 1 round bye to the second elimination round, 3 and 4 seeds. When the teams are reseeded, the number 3 seed, New York, will play the lowest, either the 8, between the 8 or 7 seed, or whoever is the lowest seeded team remaining in the playoff picture. They'll play them at home, while the number 4 seed, Chicago, will play the highest remaining seed of the first elimination round. Following round 2 and the single elimination, the league semifinals will begin with the Lynx and Sparks hosting. Following the 2-round bye to the league semifinals, it will be remaining a 3 out of 5 series format, with the Lynx at number 1 hosting the lowest remaining seed, and the number 2 seed, Los Angeles, playing the highest remaining seed. The winners of all that go to the league finals, which also remains 3 out of 5. And following the current and same and used 2-2-1 format, meaning the highest seeded teams will host games 1, 2, and 5, while the lowest seed will host games 3 and 4. So again, Shorty, starting with you, I know this is still that we're still kind of a little bit iffy on this new format. Again, 2 rounds, all single elimination, and then rounds 3 and 4, 3 out of 5 rest of the way. And again, league finals, again, 2-2-1 format for these. Shorty, again, we talked about this over the offseason when this was announced. Shorty, what is your overall thoughts, I guess, about now being able to see how this new format will work for the first time ever, again, with this brand new WNBA playoff format in your mind?
Yeah, when I had initially, saw the format, I was a bit confused and puzzled, but throughout the months, I'm definitely, the picture's coming, much clearer to me now. Basically, the first 2 rounds are single elimination, and then the semifinals and the, WNBA finals are best of 5. So, because of that now, you can see, what's going to go down, the first round, the 5 and 8 versus 6 and 7 single elimination. So it's definitely going to be interesting, come Wednesday. And it's going to be a little bit sad, and I even wrote about that because, you wouldn't picture a team like Phoenix, who was picked by the GMs to win the title this year. You wouldn't pick them to be in an elimination round. And, and neither did Indiana. And just to think that, in that matchup, you're going to have two teams with two very monumental, players, in which this could be their very last game. So it could be the very last game for Penny Taylor and Tamika Catchings. And just the thought of that, kind of not only puzzles my mind, but somewhat brings tears. But, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch to see, which teams come out of this first round matchups.
Now, Marquez, again, we know that the WNBA, of course, is the guinea pig or the lab rat for the NBA in regards to either the new clocks they have put up inside of certain NBA venues, a la Staples Center, AT&T Center, Talking Stick Resort Arena, or Target Center with a brand new deal that the NBA is in place with this Swiss watch company now sponsoring the game clocks. But again, this is probably what we will see, though, in maybe 2 to 4 years, maybe, depending on how it goes, that we will see the same exact format used up in the NBA for postseason format. So again, Marquez, confusing again, first two rounds, one and done situations, rounds 3 and 4, 3 out of 5, 2-2-1 format in the finals. Again, Marquez, what do you think? Again, we talked about it. Now we're going to see this come to fruition on Wednesday. What is your overall initial thoughts about how the new format will work in year one?
I think it'll make the games more exciting because, you just have that emphasis on winning game one because, there only is one game in these elimination settings. But it's going to be tricky because, one game could come down to, one bad officiating call, and that's it. So in some cases, you may and may not get the best team that ends up winning, but at the same time, you can't really help it because it's just a single game. You have to come out. You have to be ready. So I think that's going to make the playoffs a little bit more interesting in terms of you don't really know who's going to win because there's really not that much time for matchups and adjustments. You just have to quickly make those adjustments on the fly, which I think is going to be really exciting.
Which would have meant flashbacks to the Mercury and Lynx game 2 from TSRA last season with that phantom foul called, I should say, in regards to the final waning seconds of that game between the Merc and Lynx last season from TSRA. So again, Crystal, once more, opening 2 rounds, again, one and done situation, 8 versus 5, PHX Indy, Seattle, Atlanta, winners of those games reseeded. So again, highest remaining team, the highest lowest seeded team plays number 3, highest remaining seed plays number 2, basically a lot of mumbo jumbo there. Again, Crystal, we've talked about it, we've heard about it, we've seen it now on the WNBA website. Now we'll see it again come to fruition on Wednesday. Initial thoughts as you get ready to see this new playoff format work out are what?
Well, I hope I didn't click out of you guys. I was looking up some stuff.
No, you're still here.
Okay, good. I think the new playoff format is going to make things interesting. I said that once I heard about it. It seems to be working. You have teams that are really fighting for a playoff spot. You have Atlanta, who was supposed to be in one spot but fell all the way. I think they're supposed to be in 4th, and they're in 6th place now or something like that. So it just lets you know how competitive it is. The first 3 seeds are pretty much locked in and got lucky, but it just lets you know how, if you're not 1, 2, or 3, how competitive it is from everybody else down there. But it's been pretty fun. I'd love to see teams battle like this. I think they should incorporate it to the NBA, and if they keep this going on, I think we will see a lot of great basketball being played.
Over the chat box, folks, real quick. Todd Mintz was asking if, in fact, keyword here is if LA and Minnesota get to the finals this year. The last game that can be played, guys, Game 5, I believe what I saw, is scheduled for October 20th, which is still about a week or so before the NBA season does start. And also, if, in fact, it is LA, Minnesota, the Sparks would be able to have, at least at this point, they would be able to play Game 5 if, in fact, they get there at Staples Center. The Kings are on the road, and also the Lakers and Clippers are also finishing up their preseason. So if, in fact, it was to be LA, Minnesota, the game would be played Game 5 in Los Angeles at Staples Center. We already know that Game 1 of the Sparks series will be played over at the Walter Pyramid on the campus of CSU Long Beach due to a Kings preseason game being held on September 28th over at Staples versus the Anaheim Ducks, with that game going on between the Ducks and Kings, moving the Sparks' first playoff game out at Staples Center for the night. And in regards to that, so guys, now just look over the game. So again, opening round games once more. No room, no margin for error, guys. 8 and 5, Mercury at Fever. Storm and Dream open up our first round matchups. Again, both games, single elimination in both games, folks, will be on ESPN News for those two games. So, Shorty, give us your overall thoughts on the opening two games and who you got for both games and why.
Oh my goodness. I'd say for the Storm Dream game, that matchup could go either ways because, if Tiffany Hayes isn't able to play for the Dream, then I definitely think not only, will the game be even, but I could say that the Storm may have, a bit of an advantage. As we know, Hayes has picked up her seventh technical foul, which is an automatic suspension from the league. So we're not sure if the league will rescind it. More than likely, I'm not sure. I think they will ultimately not rescind it. And if not, the Dream is definitely going to have a tough time. But if Tiffany Hayes isn't able to play in the game, I will ultimately give the advantage to the Storm. And as for Phoenix in the Fever, that's another toss-up because even though Phoenix wasn't good defensively all season long, however, experience is one thing that can pull them over because they know playoff basketball, but so does the Fever, being in the finals, just last year. So I'm going to give ultimately the Fever the advantage in the in this matchup.
So again, folks, to reiterate once more, your Wednesday schedule of games, again, it's at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock Pacific time. Again, Mercury and Fever, 3 o'clock Pacific time, and Seattle and Atlanta at 5 o'clock. Both games are on ESPN News. We'll get to that momentarily about why they're in regards to that momentarily. But again, Marquez, your thoughts, and who do you have winning both of the first round knockout games and why?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what Shorty had said, if Tiffany Hayes isn't playing, which I don't think she will, I think Seattle has a chance. But Seattle won the season series against Atlanta anyway, I believe. So Seattle has had Atlanta's number. And I think it's going to be hard, though, because Stewart's going to have to play a really good defensive game on Elizabeth Williams. And Seattle's just going to have to hit their shots. I know towards the end of the season, they looked kind of fatigued and tired, and they weren't hitting on all cylinders. And that can be due to their rotation not being as long as others. But I think if Seattle comes out hitting their shots and they're confident, I think they will take that game. And in terms of the other, I think when you look at it, you got to see how Phoenix automatically, they already have the size advantage down low. And I think that's something that they will try to exploit early on with Griner on Larkins. And I think 1 through 5, Indiana doesn't really have the size to kind of match up that well, especially on the perimeter, because I think Indiana's going to start 2 guards and Phoenix has Taylor and Taurasi. So, I mean, it can go either way because, I mean, Indiana's a really good defensive team, but I just think Phoenix will have a little bit more.
Again, Crystal, no room, no margin for error. Again, one and done situation. Phoenix, Indiana, Seattle, Atlanta, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Both games on ESPN News. Who do you have winning these two games and to open up round one of the postseason, and why?
Oh, man. Phoenix has the worst defense in the league this year, and I think Indiana has beat them, I think, both times they've played them, if I can remember from memory. It's going to be a tough game, but, Phoenix does turn it on when it comes to big games. But because of what we've seen, how Phoenix has played for the whole season, I'm going to have to pick Indiana. I mean, if Phoenix was not supposed to be the 8th seed, they barely made the 8th seed. If Washington didn't lose that key game to Atlanta, they would have probably won the tiebreaker. But I'm going to have to go with Indiana on that one. I think it's going to be a really close game, really close competitive game. And as far as Atlanta goes, Tiffany Hayes is half the reason why they are in the playoffs. And if she is, in fact, suspended, I think Seattle might creep up and win that game by a few points.
Now, guys, there was some discussion amongst Rebecca Lobo and our good buddy David from Dish and Swish. Now, there is talk, though, guys, right now that the 7 tech rule on Hayes may be rescinded due to it being the postseason and everything resets for the playoffs. However, those 7 techs may carry over to Game 1 next season. But as of right now, nothing determined. But at this point, guys, Hayes could be available at this point with everything resetting for the postseason. In regards to my thoughts on the first game, guys, it's not every day where you get the first two matchups being league final rematches of both the Fever and Merc, and then the Storm and Dream, and another one. Both those being recent final matchups. But I think though that everyone here has made great points in regards to Phoenix being wishy-washy all season, while the Fever may not be able to contain Griner down low is another big thing as well. Seattle, getting in as well this season with a very nice turnaround in the second half of the season. Atlanta getting there only because of the workload that Hayes and McContry have. But I'm going to go with both. I'm taking Indy and Atlanta in both these games. So we've seen what both these teams can do. And, and I agree, though, guys, that there still, though, is something wrong though with Phoenix. Now, I know, though, that this is a new season, of course, with the postseason. So sometimes teams do this, but I'll pick both home teams with the Fever and Dream winning the games on Wednesday night. With that, guys, of course, the two games will be shown on ESPN News, folks. At this point, there is no word yet, and it does not look like or appear these games will be available on League Pass. They will be available on ESPN News only because there is already events scheduled for the 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock windows on the ESPN Family Network, so it is getting shoved to ESPN News. If you have AT&T Uverse like I do, that's channel 1605 on AT&T Uverse in wherever you may be living in your area. So, Shorty, we know, though, that earlier on in the offseason, of course, that when it was announced about the new deal in place with ESPN, that they were going to have all the playoff games live on ESPN. But, Shorty, the only problem, though, is I want to say that at least a good majority of the population will not be able to watch the games because ESPN News is not picked up on many cable providers. So, Shorty, is this already is the WNBA postseason already at one disadvantage already with the games being on a network provider that is through ESPN, Shorty, but may not be viewable or able to be seen by people on television due to it not being carried by certain cable providers?
I think it is a very big disadvantage because, when the league signed the contract with, ESPN, to take over, playoff programming, the thought behind it, at least to the fans, was that, they were going to be on ESPN, the main network, or at least ESPN2, or possibly ESPN3, I don't know, but the main focus was we thought that was going to be on ESPN or ESPN2, but the fact that they're being thrown to ESPN News is like, I hate to use one of Crystal's phrases again, but now they're definitely being treated like the ball-headed stepchild to ESPN, the sports network that picked them up. So I definitely don't like it. I don't like it one bit, but in the position that the WNBA is in, they have to take what they can get, and sadly, this is what they're getting.
Marquez, if it's not playoff games being moved out of home team arenas, as we'll see with, I believe, Atlanta and both Los Angeles moving game one or their game out of their home venue due to booking problems or what have you, is, we were, of course, the fans were promised, ESPN, the ESPN family networks for the playoff games, but yet it's being shown on a station that I do get, but perhaps some of the guys, perhaps the panel here, or perhaps some of our viewers don't get on their, on cable providers. And in regards to ESPN News being, somewhat on some cable providers. But again, Marquez, is this already one strike on the WNBA's credibility, or further adding on to the, negative credibility for the WNBA in regards to, again, showing the playoff games to, a pretty, low tier ranked ESPN family network, again, ESPN News?
Yeah, I don't really understand why it's on ESPN News because the games are Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not like they're competing against college football or anything. Because I don't know. I don't know why. I can't really come up with an explanation as to why. Because I can't even think of anything that's on Wednesday that would be such a big media hog that it would force those games off. But I just think it's shameful because I think fans had the expectation of it being on the two major ESPN networks, if not ESPN, then ESPN2. And for it not to be, it's just really disappointing.
Now, Crystal, I have already looked through the at least AT&T Universe, my current internet and cable provider down here in San Diego, and the listings go as follows in regards to ESPN and ESPN2 during this time frame. Again, 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock Pacific time down here. They have Major League Baseball, Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN at 5, and they also are carrying the World Cup of Hockey going on across the U.S. right now during this time frame. So, of course, Crystal, it's two big sports, of course, beating out, the bald-headed stepchild once more in the WNBA. And, of course, it is the playoffs, Crystal, but, again, there are still – ESPN is still obligated, though, to show, meaningless baseball games. And I really say meaningless baseball games, and I played baseball my entire life, Crystal. But when you're visiting in September, the playoffs are pretty much set pretty much in Major League Baseball, but they're still showing no value-added Cubs games or Dodger games on ESPN for no reason. And then, of course, the World Cup of Hockey is going on, which I guess is beneficial for me because I could be seeing those guys playing in the league I announce for. But again, Crystal, once more, another blow to the WNBA's capability of promising something good, but yet here we are once more with it being shoved onto a lower, a low-performing and lower-tiered ESPN network. Crystal, what do you think about this already with the playoffs getting off on the wrong foot before the games even start?
I didn't even know ESPN News still existed as a channel. I mean, they really don't show much stuff anyway. I guess on one hand it's still ESPN, but at the same time, like Marquez says, like what's going on Wednesday that would make them ESPN News. I mean, normally ESPN News is what they put shows on when there's big going on and then another show is started in overtime or something. Then that's normally when they're ESPN News. But other than that, I mean, I never even knew. I gotta see if that's even on my TV guide. To be honest with you, like I've never even knew people still watch that. That's like watching ESPN Classic still. I mean, who knew that was still a thing? But like I said, I guess this is ESPN. We have to be okay with it, happy with it. But not only are they being treated like the bald-headed stepchild, they're being treated like a side piece. The ESPN, they want to kick it with their main squeeze. And they're treating WNBA like the side piece, the one that you don't want to have Instagram pictures and nothing with. And that's pretty much what the situation is. So, I guess hopefully they get it in the playoffs. You just have to deal until then.
Eric Nemchuk, guys, writes in and saying, at least it's not being shown on ESPN 8, the Ocho. Of course, that was a pretty good sketch or a pretty good movie scene. But Shorty, very good point brought up here, though, by our great viewer, Christy Wilson, who says, maybe the league should work out a deal and sign with TNT, who's had success with the NBA for years. Shorty, I know that this deal with ESPN is in place, though, for the next couple of years. But, Shorty, if, in fact, the WNBA was to perhaps flip networks, would the Turner Broadcasting Network in regards to True TV, TBS, and TNT, or even CBS, of course, who streams every men's basketball tournament game for the NCAA, would that probably, I guess, kind of work better than ESPN maybe, or would it still be probably the same, though, with TNT? Of course, maybe having to shuffle around their primetime network, of course, with either Castle or the shows that they're showing, perhaps. But what was perhaps work, though, in regards to, again, of how TNT's already had good working business with the NBA? Could the WNBA perhaps, I guess, work, though, too, for them in your mind, or what do you think?
I definitely think, it's an idea, definitely, that they can possibly look into, but I'm not sure that, TNT would do anything different than ESPN because sadly the WNBA overall just doesn't bring that viewership, so I sadly think regardless of where they go, whether it's TNT or either Fox Sports, or Fox Sports 1, I still feel like either network is going to treat them like a second to third class citizen just because they don't bring that viewership.
Marquez, I think like for the first time, I probably beg to differ with Shorty because I've already seen the NWSL having their games on Fox Sports 1 on Saturdays or Sundays, and they're going to have their championship game too on Fox Sports 1. So there is at least some interest, I believe, by some of these other networks outside of ESPN, like FS1, FS2, to show women's sports. But I guess, Marquez, to bank off of Christie's idea, could perhaps TNT, again, who's done great business and has done, wonders with the NBA and their coverage, could they perhaps, I guess, work something out to show some WNBA games, or in this case, even the playoffs, maybe a little bit better, perhaps, than what we've seen from ESPN in recent years, and even, of course, this year as well? What do you think?
Perhaps. I mean, like with anything, like TV deals, and money and figures, that drives everything, and that is the same for professional and collegiate level. So, I mean, You just have to have that interest. I think I can't remember exactly what channel this is, but I think one of those carries NPF games sometimes. So maybe the WNBA can find a way to squeeze into their schedules because I mean I know WNBA is a little bit more popular than the National Pro Fast Pitch League is in terms of viewership and numbers and exposure. So maybe.
So again, Christy Wilson posing an idea, perhaps WNBA on TNT or the Turner Broadcasting System and networks or family networks that are between TNT, True, CBS, and also all the other networks that do show the NCAA tournament live and in full every March. Crystal, could this perhaps work in your mind for the future with their already pretty good track record, of course, with the NBA in recent years on TV? What do you think and why?
I don't know about that one. I mean, I don't really know. I think they would have to air like a preseason game or something, or air like see how it work and air like a big game, like a LA versus Minnesota, or like like a Phoenix versus Minnesota, some team like that. I don't know if them actually go to TNT would be the good move for them. I don't think they'd get much ratings on TNT. I don't know if that would work out. That's something that you would have to kind of try, just like how they tried the preseason game in Florida a couple years ago to see how the fan base would like it out there. I think they need to try something like that with TNT.
Oh, and to add something else, I think when you have games on TV, you have to realize the environment in the state and the arenas as well. TV channels aren't going to want half-empty arenas to be shown on their networks. I just think that makes it look bad. So I mean, I think in terms of, like Crystal said, for it to be exposed onto different and new TV channels, it'll have to be a big game. I don't think people are going to want to tune in to like Washington and I don't know, Connecticut if the arenas have I wasn't about to throw my team under the bus, but hey, you got to have attendance, and like I said, numbers and figures drive everything. So I mean, in order for that to happen, the WNBA will have to prove that they're a viable option.
And of course, Shorty, this wouldn't be a network program or us talking about the league without us bringing up the ever-famous arena relocation for the postseason. 2 games, again, guys, are already being moved out of home venues due to renovations or booking problems. Again, I already brought up the Sparks leaving for their first game on September 28th due to NHL preseason hockey at Staples Center. Well, of course, Shorty, of course, the dream, we already saw this once, but again, going to Georgia Tech to play their game on Wednesday due to ongoing renovations at Phillips Arena. They'll also be playing at Georgia Tech all next season. So again, Shorty, here we go again with the old anecdote, of course, of talking about games being moved out of home base. So Shorty, 2 pretty good reasons, of course. There is work to be done to kind of touch up Phillips Arena, and of course, NHL plus the main owners of Staples Center, of course, booting up their sisters for one night, of course, with the Kings playing the Ducks for a preseason game in a couple of weeks. So Shorty, here we go again. But I guess what's your overall thoughts and guess any final observations, I guess, about seeing this happen once more in the postseason where 2 more games are being moved from home venues due to booking and or renovation work at their home venues?
It's sad, but once again, it's no surprise. It happens every year. Let's not forget to add the Minnesota Lynx, who will be headed to Excel Energy Center, for renovations to the Target Center that's going to begin. So they're getting kicked out as well. And again, this happens every year, but it's the same old story. But, there's nothing left for us to do but deal. The WNBA, is a step down from other leagues and other events that happens in those arenas. So they're always going to continue to get kicked out for other events that bring in higher income, sadly.
So again, Marquez, dream to play at McCamish Pavilion on the campus of Georgia Tech. Sparks to play at the Walter Perimeter on the campus of Cal State Long Beach for either a knockout game or for their first playoff series. So again, Marquez, and plus you saw it firsthand with the Stars going to Freeman Coliseum while AT&T Center is being renovated too for the Spurs and Rampage for their season. So again, Marquez, what do you got to say about this? Once more, seeing 2 more games, at least for now, in a team being booted out of their home venue again due to either renovations and or booking.
Yeah, it's just a common theme, like Shorty said. I mean, you can always expect at least one team having to move and change their location because of renovations or whatever you may have it. Because I mean, San Antonio did it. Washington's moving to. So I mean, you can't really say much because I mean, it just happens all the time, and it's just something that you kind of just have to deal with, as Shorty said.
So again, Crystal, once more, I'm sure, if I have time, I could probably make it up to the first playoff game. If not, I'll wait till probably game 2 if I have time to make it up to Staples Center. But again, Atlanta to the McCamish Pavilion on the campus of Georgia Tech. Sparks, of course, going to the Pyramid at Long Beach. The Lynx going to Xcel Energy Center in nearby St. Paul, Minnesota, where the Minnesota Wild of the NHL also play. So NKT, booking problems, renovation work, of course, booting these teams out. Final observations on this happening again are what?
I'm sorry, it kind of got distorted. Can you please repeat?
Just final thoughts about seeing more games and teams being booted out of their home venues due to renovation work and or booking problems.
If it's renovation work, you really can't blame them because, I mean, stadiums need to be fixed, stadiums need to be built. But if it's just for booking problems, I mean, again, it's because the WNBA teams are the side piece of the arena. They want to go on a hot date with their main squeeze, and they don't want the side piece, texting them all day. So they block them for a little bit, and that's pretty much what it is. I mean, unfortunately, it is preseason for hockey. I don't know if you could really be upset about that. I mean, it is preseason. Long Beach Pyramid will probably look a little bit more packed on TV since it's a lot smaller. But, I mean, it is going to be like a longer drive, especially for me, who I plan on attending. But we got to suck it up. You got to suck it up if you want to see the team do well. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of us fans are going to have to do, whether it's, the Xcel Center or like how when Atlanta played in Georgia Tech. We just kind of team and you kind of just have to go with it.
Well, at least the Sparks aren't coming down to the Valley View Casino Center to play their playoff game in San Diego, much like the LA Kiss had to do when the Honda Center in Anaheim was being used by the Circus. They came all the way down to San Diego to play their only playoff game, and they lost to Cleveland in the AFL postseason. I think, folks, to reiterate once more, but again, dream to play perhaps their first and perhaps lone playoff game again at the McCamish Pavilion on the campus of Georgia Tech. The Sparks will open up their first round playoffs, their playoff series with game 1 over at Cal State Long Beach at the Walter Pyramid. And the Lynx will play all their playoff games away from Target Center due to renovation work being there. They'll play at neighboring Xcel Energy Center in the Twin City of St. Paul, Minnesota for those matchups. And again, game 2 is scheduled back at Staples Center. Right now, the Sparks are again booted out due to the Kings, the main owner of the Staples Center, playing a preseason hockey game against the Anaheim Ducks on September 28th. And to quickly clean up guys on aisle 3. If, in fact, the Sparks were to play the Lynx, it would actually be the Lynx playing hosting games 1, 2, and 5, not the other way around. LA would play or would host games 3 and 4 at Staples Center, and they would not be hosting game 5. But even then, they would still be able to play those two games, at least what I would call, saying they would still be able to play games 3 and 4 at Staples Center should, in fact, they get there. But that was a little bit of a cleanup we wanted to pass across. But, of course, folks, to reiterate the first round playoff matchups, one and done, no margin for error. Mercury and Fever, 3 o'clock Pacific time on ESPN News on Wednesday, and then also on ESPN News at 5 o'clock Pacific time, Storm and Dream. That game, again, also on ESPN News. But, again, that game will be played from the McCamish Pavilion on the campus of Georgia Tech University. Again, to clean up, folks, but, again, if and when the Sparks were to play the Lynx, again, it would be the Lynx hosting games 1, 2, and 5 at Xcel Energy Center, and games 3 and 4 being held at Staples Center in Los Angeles, or perhaps maybe booted out due to Kings or the Lakers getting their seasons underway. With that, guys, up until Wednesday night, when we do come back here, folks, on Wednesday to recap the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, we'll be back with you folks here on Wednesday. Dylan, folks, for Crystal Thomas, Tisha Stewart, and Marquez Anderson, Cal McClure from Studio 171 in San Diego signing off. Till Wednesday, folks, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thanks for stopping by and joining us, folks, and good night. We'll see you folks back here Wednesday night following the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and we'll figure out who's going where to play in round 2 of the WNBA playoffs. For KT, Shorty, and Marquez, this is Cal McClure signing off, folks. Until Wednesday night, take care and good night. Bye-bye.